Hi guys, Elle here. So it's been a while since I have done a proper tarot deck review, and this deck right here, the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery, has been sitting on my reviews to-do list for quite a while now. So it's time. And this is, of course, done by the amazing, the wonderful, the he can do no wrong, Robert M. Place. This is the tuck box that it comes in from Hermes Publications, which is, of course, Robert M. Place's own publishing company. There is the back of the box. That is the Hermit card also. Isn't it gorgeous? That right there, guys, that is barcode. Yes, it is. And it reads on the side here, the creation of the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery began at the dawn of the 21st century and was initially inspired by the sumptuous paintings of the 19th century English painter Edward Burne-Jones, whose work embodies the mystical idea that physical beauty and spiritual beauty are linked and can lead to the experience of beauty itself as a mystical truth. Oh, that's right. The Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery expresses the transcendental philosophy that is linked to the origin of the tarot, so true, and illustrates the ancient Western theory of the 3 soul levels and the 7 soul centers that function as steps in the mystical ascent. It can be read on many levels, from the mundane to the spiritual, and can uncover the longings of the soul. That shit sounds pretty friggin' deep, huh? And it is. It's a deep deck, but it's really true. This deck works on any level upon which you want to use it on. You know, you can read it for mundane readings. You can use it for incredibly spiritual seekings and readings and workings and all that kind of stuff. I love that he touches on the side here even about how the things that are discussed in this deck, the themes of this deck, which are Neoplatonic basically, are really what is incorporated in tarot from time immemorial, you know, from the very origins of tarot, from the very first tarot decks. These are the kind of things that the symbolism is talking about, that the iconography is referencing, all these Neoplatonic ideas that he really delves very deeply into with this amazing deck. This isn't a new deck. It came out back in 2012, 2013, and it has been a valuable tool in my tarot arsenal for a long time now. I love this deck. So yeah, it comes also with a little white book. That is this guy here. And although it is very brief, it is a fantastic, oh, copyright 2012, there you go, 2012. A fantastic little white book. Basically, he talks about the 2 things that make this deck really great. One being the artwork, and the other being the theme of this deck and all these Neoplatonic ideas that are referenced and incorporated. And he talks about that, just like we will in a second. And then it gets into brief meanings of the cards. So you have the Fool and all the trumps, and it's just a little paragraph like that right there. That's the Emperor. But it's very to the point and different. That's, I think, what I love about this deck and the Alchemical Tarot and all of Robert M. Place's decks, is that they're not the same old meanings, not the same old images. You know, he goes to a slightly different place, and it helps you understand the cards and all the tarot cards in a really unique and different way. So that's the majors, and then it gets into the minors, and it's very brief. But again, this is one of those little white books that when I'm, you know, journaling and stuff, like, I'll go into this, even though it's so brief. Like, I won't whip out usually my like Lo Scarabeo little white books to look at what's written in there, because it's the same thing kind of over and over. So like number 4, this is the 4 of coins, the miser. He's burying his coins, represents planting, investment, hoarding, or stinginess. So they're familiar, but like, he's just got a great way of using different words and expressing the ideas of the cards so simply that it's really a wonderful little white book. So you have coins, earth, sensation; cups, water, intuition; swords, air, thinking; and staffs, fire, feeling. And then there's no spreads or anything like that, but you do have a few more paragraphs in the last page here talking about the imagery on the backs of the cards. Okay guys, so this is the little baggie I keep my tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery in. Lots of green. I like the green. And actually this is the deck that I just showed the edging. I had just started edging it in my tarot deck modification video, and can you guys see that? Look at how good it came out. I am so happy I decided to edge it in green. Oh, it made it look so awesome. Check that out. It's like perfect. Isn't that gorgeous? I love it. I have a green sided tarot deck. So good. By the way, guys, let's do a quick size comparison. This is Robert M. Place's other deck, the Alchemical Tarot. This is the 4th edition renewed, and it is not quite the same size. It is about, I would say, 1/4 of an inch, maybe, 1/4 of an inch bigger. Sevenfold Mystery is, and almost about the same height. It's just a hair taller. And then if you compare it to a standard tarot size, this is the Centennial Rider-Waite Smith. It's about the same. It's about a 1/4 of an inch wider and just a hair taller. The Alchemical Tarot is pretty standard tarot size. Yep. And just so you guys know, I am planning on filming, hopefully right after this, a side-by-side of the Alchemical Tarot, the 4th edition, and the Sevenfold Mystery. There's a wonderful, wonderful video up by Angelo Nasios that helped me sort of back in the day decide what deck I wanted to get and compare the two, because there are quite a few similarities. Artemis, shush! Because there are quite a few similarities between the two decks. However, that video is just a little bit old now, and it's comparing an older edition of the Alchemical Tarot, which looks really, really different than the current 4th edition one. So I want to do a quick side-by-side so you can see the latest editions of both. And yeah, let's start things off with the backs of these cards. How gorgeous are they? So clearly not reversible, but that's okay because they're so pretty. This is called the Staff of Serapis, who's sort of a Hellenistic Osiris / Hades kind of a figure. You have your Ouroboros here on top of the staff, and it's the head of a dog, the head of a wolf, and the head of a lion. And this was such a beautiful choice for the backs of his cards because it really expresses and sums up what the entire deck is really all about. So when this image was introduced to like 15th century Renaissance artists, it was equated with prudence, okay? And prudence is a virtue, of course, right? And prudence was often depicted as a woman with 3 heads. So this 3-headed thing, past, present, future idea, was already associated right off the bat with a virtue. And it's also associated with the 3 parts of the Platonic soul, you could say. And these are themes that Robert M. Place has running throughout the entire tarot deck and that he talks about a lot with this deck. And really, the whole point of it is to show how from the beginning of tarot, this is the iconography, this is the symbolism, this is what the symbolism is making reference to, mostly these Neoplatonic ideas, these ideas of the 3 parts of the soul that we're going to talk about, and the 7 soul centers, like the 7 planets, or the ladder of lights, and how it represents the soul's ascent to higher levels of awareness and higher levels of consciousness. So each of these heads right up here can also be thought of as parts of the soul. And in order to move on and become enlightened, we have to bring them all into alignment, into balance, into wholeness. Thus creating like the 4th virtue, which is prudence, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But each one of these is also associated, or can be associated, with a tarot card, like Robert M. Place does. And it all sort of looks like this. Here you have the wolf who devours the past, representative of the soul of appetite. And that appetite part of us being, things like the need to acquire more profit, sex, things like that. And it's also associated with the Temperance card, and temperance is its virtue. And then you have the lion here, who dominates the present, representing the soul of will. This is when you seek fame and power and domination, those kinds of things. And associated with the strength card, literally, right? And these two also would represent, if you were looking at something like the Chariot, right? The Chariot card. You have a black and a white horse or a black and a white sphinx and a person controlling the two. The person we're about to get to, but the black horse or sphinx or whatever would be the wolf, and the white is representative of the lion. They're all talking about the same thing. And then anyway, this is the soul of reason, the dog here, who can, as Robert M. Place puts it, create a better future through his intelligence and through his optimism and his hope. But this would be the driver of the Chariot also. And the corresponding tarot card for the soul of reason would be the Justice card. And then when you get all these things together and in accordance, you can move on to the next virtue of Prudence, which would be represented also as the World card, or as the Prudence figure with the three heads in Renaissance artwork. This idea of prudence could be represented by something like Sophia or the Anima Mundi, the world soul, and was often depicted as a nude female figure, which is exactly what we get in the world card. So that would be the corresponding prudence image in the tarot, the world card. Anyway, that was a lot of explanation. Let's get into the deck. Okay, let's start things off with the amazing female Fool card. Oh my god, how cool is that? It has Stultitia up here, which means foolishness in Latin. And you'll notice things like this in a lot of the major Arcana cards. A lot of them have very different names, or is drawing your attention to something. There's a lot of cards that actually have some writing on it, so you can see how they're talking about the 3 parts of the soul, or the 7 soul centers, things like that. I just really do love that it's a female Fool. She's even sort of peeking out from under the blindfold. You get your Robert M. Place greyhounds, of course. Okay, so I'm going to sort of show the cards and talk a little bit more about the intent, I think, behind the deck as I go through. I'm not going to really talk about each card kind of individually, but here again you can see some of the rename. So instead of a magician, number 1 is Hermes, like the magician. With a lot of the classic traditional symbols and icons and all that. Familiar archetypes. Sybil is number 2, the High Priestess. Isn't she beautiful? The colors on this deck are just... The coloring is so pretty. All the majors, by the way, have this like purplish sort of outline on the border, and all the minors for each suit have a different color going around. You'll see as we get to it. And here's number 3. The Empress is Regina, the Queen, or the Holy Roman Empress. Really, she is. And then number 4, your Emperor is the Holy Roman Emperor. It's really harken back to old historic decks in a wonderful way. Look at this Hierophant. They're just beautifully reimagined and with an amazing pre-Raphaelite artistic style. So really the inspiration for this entire deck has come from the gentleman, the artist we mentioned before from the side of the box, Edward Burne-Jones. Don't know if I'm saying that right. Side note, sorry, here's where you see some of the labeling of things. Isn't that great? And it doesn't take away from the look of things artistically. It just really helps you hone in on the ideas that are really trying to be expressed in this deck. And there's reason and will, and there is your Chariot, appetite, will, and reason driving the Chariot, like we were talking about from the backs of the cards. Same idea. Okay, so anyway, back to Edward Burne-Jones here. So basically Robert M. Place took several of his paintings and redrew them, redid them for this tarot deck. He already had cards that were tarot cards, basically. He had a Temperance card, he had a Wheel of Fortune, he had a Lover's card. So that's what you see in here for those cards and others. He's theorized that he may have even been working on a tarot deck, and this is like the completed Burne-Jones tarot deck. The Hermit is unnamed, by the way. How cool is that? Holding a 7-pointed star. And number 10, the Wheel of Fortune, is Fortuna. And Mr. Burne-Jones was heavily influenced and inspired by Renaissance painters and artists, especially people like Botticelli and Michelangelo, both of whom are like really prime examples of Neoplatonic mystical art of the 15th century. Also, the 15th century being the same time that tarot comes from, this Renaissance Neoplatonic movement. So you see the same ideas that they talk about in their art and that were being talked about at the time in tarot. You really do. It's all right there. So while you could say that this beautiful deck, strength is number 11, by the way, and justice 8 here. So while you could say that this is a Neoplatonic themed tarot deck, really it's just a traditional tarot deck. But I love that he really makes this argument and makes this case and can clarify things in a really beautiful way. It's one of the things I loved about his alchemical tarot is that, you know, alchemy and the tarot are interlinked. Like they're talking about the same thing. But he breaks it down and says maybe this means that specifically. And he sort of does the same thing with this deck in regards to these Neoplatonic ideas. This is one of those very famous, of course, Edward Burne-Jones images. That is Temperance. Look at that. Such a pretty card. The devil is called Satan here, and you see again unreason up here, and will and appetite being suppressed at the bottom, or lounging luxuriously at the feet of the devil, perhaps. Here's your tower called Fire. And Stella is the star. I love this card. Luna for the moon. Reason, will, and appetite. All right there. And then Apollo here. You see the Logos, you see reason, and you see Hieroskamos, the sacred wedding or marriage. And number 20 is, instead of judgment, you get the name of the angel Gabriel. And then here, he's titled the World card Prudence. And you see that classic depiction of the naked female form as the Anima Mundi, the Sophia, the world soul, whatever you want to call her. So I think it's really interesting too that these Neoplatonic ideas that are talked about in this deck are the very same things that you talk about when you talk about all of Western mysticism, really, in general. You know, the Hermetics talk about it, alchemists, Gnostics, even the esoteric Christians. It's all the same ideas. He even says in the little white book here that he believes that the tarot's trumps depict virtue, driving, and ascent through the 7 soul centers, depicted repeatedly on 3 levels, corresponding to the 3 Platonic souls. Does that make sense? So really, here's a little picture from the little white book. You know, the major arcana is broken up into, like, you could say 3 sets of 7, right? And so you go through on each soul level, the ladder of lights. You work your way up through the planets, through the 7 soul centers, the 7 chakras, however you want to think of it, 3 times over. With a different virtue or a different tarot card leading the way. So you go through with temperance, you go through with justice, and the whole thing ends with you becoming light and beauty itself as you become prudence, as you become the world card. That's the journey of the trumps of the major arcana of the tarot. She's the light of higher consciousness and the food of the soul, as Robert M. Place says and Plato says. Isn't that a beautiful idea? So I think that this deck is, yes, a fantastic tarot deck for doing tarot readings, but it's also a great deck for, like we talked about when I did those Living the Tarot videos, you know, if you're doing the work and using the tarot as a tool, as a guide, as a pathway to be walked on, you know, this deck really sort of pulls you in that direction. So it's lovely. Okay, guys, on into the minor arcana now. Here are your wands or your staffs. This is the Ace of Wands. I love that there's a woman actually holding it, not just a hand. All the borders on the wands have this beautiful bright red around them, so the entirety of the minor arcana is like color-coded. Gotta love it. And Robert and Place says, even in the little white book, that he based the work on this deck from work that he had previously done with the Alchemical Tarot. So you might recognize, if you've never seen this deck before, that a lot of the images have a lot of similarities to that deck. That's another reason why I really wanted to do a side-by-side. Because I was a little worried at first. I'm like, am I just buying two of the same tarot decks, like with little tweaks? And there are a few cards that look very, very similar. There's a handful. But on a whole, I'm so happy that I have both decks, because especially with the new Alchemical Tarot and the coloring being so different on that deck, these two decks don't feel very similar to each other really at all. Aren't they beautiful and bright? Very fiery. They're all like sort of cut wood branches that look like torches almost. Oh, I love this one. Here's your Nine of Wands. They don't have numbers on it, by the way, so it can't get, until you get really comfortable with it, like I just know that's the 9 and that's the 10, because I'm comfortable with the deck at this point. But there was definitely a period of time at first where I was counting a lot to make sure what card I was actually looking at. It can get a little confusing. I would prefer it if it was written on there. It just makes things so much easier. I have to do that with like Marseille and Pip card decks sometimes too, right? You're like 1, 2, 3, okay, got it. That was your 9, which is a crow, and your 10 turns into a beautiful phoenix rising from the flames. Isn't that gorgeous? And then just like in the Alchemical Tarot, actually, you have Lady as pages. So here is your Lady of Staffs, your Knight, your Queen, and your King. Classic. I like how even has the club and with the dragon down here, club, the suit sign of clubs, which correspond, of course, with the wands. All right, here is our cup suit, your Ace of Cups. Love the castle and the cup. Classic Caduceus on the 2 of Cups. Your 3 of Cups showing different elements. Your 4 of Cups. These actually have like a greenish blue kind of a border for all the cups. 6 of Cups. Your 7 of Cups. Very similar to like a Rider-Waite-Smith kind of thing without actually showing it. There's a little symbol on each one of the cups. Very beautiful. This entire deck really is just a cool, again, it makes reference to the 7 planets and everything, but it also is a combination of like 15th century traditional decks and like 19th century and beyond occult significance and occult symbolism. So it's an interesting blend of new and old. And although it is really a very esoteric deck, I think it has to do with the simplicity of Robert M. Place's artwork that makes this work so incredibly well and feel like an easy deck to work with and to look at, you know, with all the things going on and all the different themes and ideas that are sort of being expressed with all the different symbols, and everything means something in a deck like this. Robert M. Place doesn't do anything on accident. So, you know, if these cards were so busy, I think it would be a lot, but he's managed to pack so much meaning and thought and symbolism into very simple looking images. Love that. And the cups with all the heart symbolism, making reference to the suit signs. Here is your Ace of Swords. And these all have like a dark, almost a bluish purple, like a dark blue kind of a border. I love that 2 of Swords with my Hututel. So pretty. Very classic 3 of Swords. Four of Swords. There is some nudity, obviously. I think it's just bare-chested women. You'll see a lot of breasts throughout. But breasts are fun. Here's your Six of Swords. Your Seven of Swords. I mean, a lot of the stuff you don't even really have to count. There's enough familiarity with traditional tarot, with Rider-Waite-Smith specifically, like, you know, 7, the Thief, the 8, encircled and bound, and the Swords. It's actually called the Fearful Hero, and he's following a thread through all of these dangling swords. It can be like danger, or the ability to overcome fear and danger. Beautiful Nine of Swords. Here is your Ten of Swords. He's bleeding. And then your Lady. Your Knight, battling the dragon. Your Queen with her feathers. And your King with his spades on his shield. Alright, our last suit, and for all the pentacles, you have a beautiful yellow border around all the images. And this is your Ace of Pentacles. Your Two of Pentacles. Look at that Ouroboros snake. And the color's just so pretty. Very Rider-Waite-Smithy Three of Pentacles. Or coins, whatever you want to call them. I love this Four of Coins though, isn't that great? Just burying them, saving them for later. Beautifully expresses the theme of that card. There's your Five. It looks like just kind of a zoom in on one of the people out in the cold from the Rider-Waite-Smith card, right? Here's your Six of Coins, giving a coin. Oh, look, there is a little below the belt nudity. It's a little, I feel like a pedophile right now. A little baby penis. All right, cut that out later. Here is your Seven of Coins. I love that card. Isn't that great? Growing and growing. The wings spread wider and wider up into the 7. And here's your 8, working hard. Your 9 of Coins, the money tree. And your 10 of Coins, the materialist, he calls this card. The ability to create wealth or create fame or just to create. All right, and our last court cards here is your Lady of Coins, your Knight, I love his bright red hair, your Queen, and your King with his diamonds on his shield. Isn't that gorgeous? And I am not going to shuffle these cards, but they are almost standard tarot size, so they shuffle amazingly. As you could probably tell, they're fairly glossy cards, very similar to the Alchemical Tarot. Nice rounded corners. The deck quality is amazing. It's beautiful. It's perfect. Nothing bad to be said about it. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. That was the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery by Robert M. Place. Check the description below for links to where you can buy this deck. Bye guys!